Good morning. How are you?
Good. How about y'all?
I'm doing okay. Keith will be coming in the door in about 40 seconds.
All right, that'll be fine.
So, Jasmine, are you there?
Yes, how are y'all?
Doing okay. How about you?
Good.
Good. Um, yeah.
So, everybody have a good weekend?
Yes. I was going to ask how the horse riding went.
We had a really good show. We did we ended up, what our goal was to go up there and really do well in the ranch horse competition. And we did it was there were three judges, but one of the judges was double pointed. So basically you're showing under four judges. And there were three different ranch classes, and two of the ranch classes we got first under all four judges. The other ranch class we got first. Well, we got first in all three under all three judges. Like I said, one was double pointed. The third ranch class we got two first and a second. And so we did really well with what we wanted to do. I showed him reining. We had a really good pattern. We were the only ones in there, so we won it. I showed him several times, and we did okay. But we were really pushing for those ranch horse classes, and that's what we excelled in. And we brought home a trophy and some buckles, or a buckle and a trophy. So we brought home some hardware, got a lot of points put on him. So that's what we were after.
All right. Good.
It
Congratulations.
was a long weekend. I started about 5 o'clock on Saturday morning. We drove up there Friday, and I rode him around, and I rode my little filly around. I took her with me as well for one of my fillies, and got up about 5 o'clock Friday morning, fed the barn, fed the horses and everything, and started showing at 7:30, and I didn't finish up to 1:30 Sunday morning. I got back to the hotel about 2 o'clock, back up at 6, at it again, and then I ended up getting home Sunday night about midnight. So it was a long weekend.
Yes, it was. But sleep is overrated, so there you go.
If that's what you want to believe, I crashed yesterday, uh, and I guess I went to bed about 9 o'clock. So that was okay.
Well, that sounds like a good way to spend your weekend. It seems like you
Oh,
enjoyed it at least.
I had a blast, and I,
Yeah.
you know, and I saw a lot of people I haven't seen in years, and it was a lot of fun.
Good. Which my father and I went to a military vehicle show in Denton, North Carolina, and that was fun. But that was about it for me, I guess. That seems like I spent all day in church Sunday.
I didn't make it to church because I was working,
Yes, you are.
so I earned my money. Hey, count all my hours up, I probably worked for less than minimum wage, but that's all right. Hopefully, it'll get me more horses in the barn. Oh, and I'll tell you the funny thing. You know, most, I like horse showing and I like doing it to test my abilities on getting my horses trained and keeping up with, you know, what's going on in the horse world, you know, in the show pen on how I need to get my horses. And, you know, so I look at it as a test for my abilities. And yes, I love to win, don't get me wrong. But my ego and my self-esteem doesn't depend on me winning. It depends on me being competitive. Because you got a lot of good horses in there. All you can do is be competitive and let the chips fall where they fall. And if you win, people may say you're lucky, but that's just where opportunity and hard work come together, in my opinion. Because luck spelled W-O-R-K. I don't care how else you spell it. It's spelled W-O-R-K. And, you know, I'm not going to say we got lucky. We worked hard for the last year training. And the competition was tough. But, you know, you talk about fragile egos, and we've talked about it in this class, that you got to be careful with egos. And I saw a good example of that this weekend, where I was waiting to show in the ranch classes, and this lady comes up to me, and she said, "Are you going in the ranch classes?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And she said, "Well, we are too." And I said, "Well, that's good. I hope you do well." And she said, "Oh, we will." Last year, we led the nation in points for 2 of these 3 classes all year long. And I finished second in the nation in one of these ranch classes, and I finished first in the nation in the other one. She goes, "I'm going to do it again this year." And I said, "Cool." I said, "Did you go?" And I was asking her, "Did you go to the world show?" "No, I didn't make it, But she kept bragging about how good she was. And I don't know if it was her ego, if she was trying to intimidate me. I don't know what it was. But I went in there. I just did my job. My horse.
Are you having a seizure, or did you just your camera and stuff freeze up? Jasmine, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but his camera was froze on this end too.
Yes. Your call is important to us. Please stay on the line. I'm sorry. Hopefully he'll be reconnected here in the next minute or so. Dwayne, do you hear me? He may be out of the room. Okay. I'll text you back in a couple minutes if things are sideways. Okay. Bye. Bye. Now we just have to get Dwayne back in the room. Please hold a little bit longer, y'all. Okay, he was gone to get his IT people, so he'll be back in just a few seconds. So now's the time for me to do the commercial about signing up for your classes if you haven't already done so. Which, Aaron, I guess you'd be signing up for classes at Virginia Tech, so oh well.
June 21st.
Oh, excellent. So Jasmine, have you signed up for fall yet?
No, I need to though.
Yes, you do. Okay.
All right, I'm back.
Yes, you are.
Anyway, well, I was telling you, she was just glaring at me. Then after the third class, if looks could kill, I'd be dead. With her, I don't know what her deal was, but I guess her ego was based on her winning or something. I don't know. But I was glad opportunity and hard work came together that yesterday. Whether we have that again the next show, I don't know. I hope we do. But anyway, it was fun. Keith, did you get your bear?
No, I didn't. We're still hunting them, and I know more about bears than I ever knew about. But according to the game warden, they're territorial, and so he's making a roam through his territory. He'll probably be back. He hit a farm a few miles down the road from me over the weekend. So I have put up these bear reflectors. I don't know if they work or not, but they're recommended. And they emit they're solar lights, but they emit a red beam. And the bear is supposed to think that's the retina reflecting from a dog. And bears, I'm told, hate dogs. So I hope that will scare them away. But I was out there Saturday night with my 30-06 and saw a lot of tracks and scants and other signs that the bears are around the area, but didn't run into them. So they have a real good sense of smell. So I'm sure they probably smelt us before we even got out of the truck.
Well, if you'd have rubbed yourself in honey, he might have came home.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I guess food is very scarce because found a lot of markings in like tree stumps. They literally looks like somebody went with a chipper and ground the stump up because they're trying to get the grubs out to eat.
Right. Yeah, they dig for them. Those big claws.
Yeah, but
They
they got two.
get the claws in you.
No, they're two pretty big boys. One's about 450, the other one's about 300 pounds.
Yeah, I saw those tracks.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think I want to be caught out there unarmed with one of those guys because the game warden says whatever you do, don't run because that initiates them to attack. They like to chase things.
Yeah, that predator prey.
Yeah.
instinct.
So he just said
My
try to make yourself.
experience with them, they're more scared of me than I am of them.
Well, that's usually the case, but we're becoming urbanized now, and we throw our trash in these dumpsters, and that's where they're hanging out getting food and stuff. And people, bird feeders are another problem that they're going to people's yard and getting bird feeders, and a lot of people feed their animals outside, and they leave the leftover food out during the night, and that attracts the bears. So that the bears are getting used to people.
They are. At least where I live right now on my farm, they're staying. They don't get. They're staying away. Uh, you know.
But I understand they hate dogs. So I guess if you have dogs, they won't come up near you. So.
Well, hopefully that's the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of bear on my farm, but they've always ran.
Yeah.
I'm more scared of snakes than I am bear.
I am too. In my book, only good snake's a dead snake.
But anyway, that's just me.
But change subject here. Last night I was flipping through a TV station, nothing else to do, and I ran across this TV show. I think it was on History Channel. It was on the Amish and their whole lifestyle, their beliefs and stuff. But one of their passions are horses, and I was thinking about you. And they were talking about horses, and they're almost like they're treated like people in the Amish family. But one of the trainer says one of the difference between us and them, I guess, non-Amish trainers, is that the non-Amish, they say we break the horse, and the Amish says we train the horse. And they start at a young age, and the success, they match the personality of the horse to the personality of the owner. I don't know what that means, but it was just a very interesting thing, their whole philosophy about horses. And they have, the saddlery industry and other horse-related stuff's all up there in the Pennsylvania, I guess, Lancaster area. And they don't use, this surprised me, leather stuff to make saddle stuff. It's something called Syntex, and it lasts longer, it's cheaper, and you don't have to oil it.
I don't, that stuff's kind of new. And I've seen it in harnesses and bridles and reins. And it looks like leather, kind of feels like leather, has a little different feel to it. It's kind of rubbery like. I don't trust it. I mean, it may be better. I don't know. I guess I'm like a traditionalist on that. I like leather.
Well, they described something, I forgot the horse equipment they were talking about, and leather was about $800 with this
Leather's
Syntex.
expensive.
Yeah, it says about $100. And the thing I was thinking about, they're supposed to shun modernization stuff like that. How can they use a man-made product versus a natural product?
There's a lot of things they do that makes me go, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be judgmental on them or anything. But that's one of them. But I don't know about that stuff. People are starting to use it more. I don't care for it yet. I still like my leathers.
Yeah.
And as for, training horses, a lot of people say they break horses. I've tried to get away from that. I try to use the word start. I start a lot of colts instead of break a lot of colts. I'm like them. I don't like that terminology of breaking. What are you breaking? I don't want to break their spirit, and I don't want to break them down physically. So, I try to use the term start. But matching the personality of the horse with personality of people, I understand what he's saying. Every horse has a different personality. Some are high strung, some are pretty laid back, some are spooky, some don't care. And you've got to find the right match of a horse with the rider, because personalities clash just like they do in people. And to have a good relationship, you want to be able to get along with that horse's personality.
It was a really good show because they have different breeds for everything they need to do on the farm. A different breed for plowing, a different breed of horse for the wagons, different breed for just riding, and it was amazing with all the uh, breeds, what they do and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, they do. They have a horse sale down here twice a year, and they bring the Amish come down here quite a bit with a lot of their draft horses and mules and buggy horses and riding horses. And I like to go down there and watch them sell and take a look at those big drafts. I don't. I personally don't want one. My wife's wanting one for some reason. I don't know why, but uh, I don't. You know, I don't have a use for one, so I don't really want one.
One of the criticism that they answered is that of course, they use the buggies for all the transportation, and they use, I guess, titanium horseshoes or some type of metal that really digs ruts in the asphalt, and they get a lot of criticism. But they voluntarily tax themselves and send money to the county and to the state to maintain the roads that they use.
They may be using a metal called borium
Okay.
that I didn't know it chipped the asphalt. I know it gives more traction on that asphalt. They'll just shoe them up. You know, they'll take regular horseshoes and they'll melt a little borium on there, like two or
Yeah,
three
that's
parts,
yeah, that's what they yeah. Okay. I didn't know what they used. Yeah.
and it keeps them from sliding as much supposedly. Um, Different theories out there about it. I don't like it. Uh, you know, if you think, you slide, you're given. And I know when animals slide, whether it's cattle and you're working cattle and they start sliding, I mean that really freaks them out. You got to have good footing when you work cattle or where you work cattle. It'll keep them a whole lot more calm. And horses are the same way. But if I'm riding on pavement, the way I look at it, if my horse puts his foot down and it doesn't slide, you've got that little hoof for such a big animal. And if that doesn't give it all, you're putting all that. I don't know how many pounds per square inch is on the hoof in that distribution. That animal's foot comes down and it doesn't have any give. What's that doing to the tendons and bones over the long term?
Hmm.
Long
It's a good
term
point.
studies have shown that it causes some damages in those legs and feet. I just sooner let my horse slide a little bit and go on. Most horses adapt to it and go on. I've ridden for years, you know, on pavement or going from pasture to pasture on pavement. And once a horse gets used to that, they don't freak out. A young horse might until he figures it out, but um, I'd rather have that as I would that borium, just because I don't want to damage up their tendons and ligaments and bones over a long time. I'd rather have my horse slide a little bit and everything give with that.
Good. Good.
That's my opinion. Other people disagree with me, but that's my opinion. My farrier has that same opinion I have, so I may not be out of the ballpark with that. But I'm not on pavement like those guys are, with those buggies. But again, I just think the long term damage of that. But anyway, that's just me. Aaron, you doing all right today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good today.
Good. You have a good Easter weekend?
It was good. How about yourself?
It was
So
good, thank you.
Williamstown is where the ark's located.
Hey, Jasmine, you doing all right?
Yes.
Good. All right.
This
The
is
semester's
you-
winding
are-
down. Uh, all the assignments that you guys have sent in to me, I've got them graded. So if you will take a look at Blackboard anything out there you don't have a grade on, I do not have it to grade. Um, so let me see here. Who's missing what? I'm still missing a couple of, let's see, a couple assignments from you, Aaron. That I need. Did you get
Is
my
it the
email? I sent
decisions?
you a note
Is
what
it
it was.
decision score sheet or something?
Yeah, the decision score and the compensation.
And the compass. Okay, I'll get those into you.
All right, thanks. Jasmine and Keith, everything, y'all have got everything in there. So, and I have all your exams graded. And Tom, I hadn't got to get you the exams, and I just got to get it made up. I haven't been able to do that yet. Some stuff came up, and I wasn't able to work on it yesterday. I was trying to put out other fires and stuff with the college stuff, and that I had to get done.
Oh, I know that song and dance.
You know how the assessments are. So, anyway, uh, if y'all can get those to me, I'd appreciate it. We've got y'all's school ends May the 1st, so I need to get these in so I can get the grades tallied up for Keith or for Tom, and and also need them for the final in that animal production class for Aaron and Jasmine. So
Dwayne, I also need the test for animal production too. The lab
get it
didn't have it when
online.
I.
Just go to your testing center. It's on Blackboard.
Okay.
Now let me see something, Aaron. Did you take that first exam yet?
I don't think so. That's the one I was. I don't think they
Yeah,
ever
I'm
got. And we
thinking
tried
you
to.
have not taken your first animal production exam.
Yeah, I need to take both of those.
Yeah,
And I
that
don't.
should
I
be
don't,
in
I
the
don't think
testing
they.
center.
Because I tried to get it like twice, and they said they didn't have it.
And then I finally got them the password, and then I guess he never went back, which we'll probably have to resend it to them because they've probably lost it by now, if it's
Yeah.
available
So.
still.
And that first exam was a written exam that Tom put in the testing center for you.
Yeah, that was the one I was trying to take, and they couldn't find it in their folder.
Okay.
So if I could possibly get you to send it back to them, and then I'll gladly take it. I've totally lost track of that.
All right, Tom, do you still have that email with that on there? Or do I need to send it to you again?
I don't know. I'll have to look. Give me a few minutes. Animal science
All right.
#1, you said?
Is the what now,
An-
Tom? I didn't.
It was the
follow
animal
that.
science test #1?
Yes,
Okay.
and it was back in February. If that'll help you, I'm thinking it was back in February. Let me see if I got a date on there. I'm thinking it was back in February. I'm not for certain. I know it wasn't March, so I'm pretty sure it was February. But if you don't have it, let me know and I'll send it to you today. Okay.
And what
The
I'll
other
do is
day.
third.
Okay,
Go
I
ahead.
have it.
All right. And you will need a calculator for that first exam, Aaron. because you have to balance a ration.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure I bring one when I go in there. I'll probably take both of them Thursday, and get them turned into you.
Okay, sounds fine. Study for them. The second one's, a lot of hormonal questions on there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to review.
So, all right. Let's get started here. Thursday, we were talking about discipline, when we have to discipline an employee. And we finished up that chapter. You know, we talked about a lot of times we need to look at ourselves first if we're having an issue. Because as supervisors, we have the ability to help them grow or make them regress or not grow at all. So we need to look at ourselves first. And we talked about reasons of poor performance. We talked about putting effective discipline based on just cause, developing fair rules, a progressive disciplinary approach that keeps getting more severe for serious infractions or serious infractions or more severe discipline. Repeat offenses starts off easy but gets more severe. We talked about communication, how we need to clearly communicate our policies and clearly communicate when we're discussing something in a disciplinary tone. And we talked about getting something, nipping it in the bud before it becomes a problem. We also talked about how we need to conduct a fair investigation and an investigative interview, and to avoid false accusations at all levels, and try to maintain privacy, keep everything confidential, even though it's probably not going to happen because people talk, but you don't need to be starting that and telling about it. Keep everything as quiet as you can. And again, document everything. So we, we talked about all that. Talked about trying to have we talked about what's considered a punitive punishment. We don't want to be punitive. We just want to be creative and have it fit the crime. And hopefully it will be effective. We talked about times we see abrupt increases in rule enforcement, and always maintain your cool. Don't ever terminate somebody on the spot. Always do an investigation first if it's that bad. Don't just fire them on the spot. And we talked about how effective discipline can protect your business. It protects the people, it protects the supervisors, and it also protects the workers. And that's where we finished up. So today, I want to talk about termination. Termination, that's the last step in an unsuccessful attempt to help a worker meet the standards of a job or to change, if there's a behavioral problem, it's that last step we could take to help them change that behavior. A lot of times it's termed the death penalty of employment. You get fired from a job, a lot of job applications will ask you, have you ever been fired or asked to resign? And so, a potential employer if you mark yes on that, all of a sudden, red flags are going up. That's catching their attention. And so it may be kind of hard for that other person to find another, the terminated person to find a job. And that's why it's gotten to be termed the death penalty of employment. And so it's also a blow to the ego and the self-esteem of that individual. It's not a good thing. You don't want to fire people if at all possible. That's your last step. Implications in management. There's a lot of them. Number one, you've had a lot of costs associated with hiring that person. Selecting them, hiring them, training them. You've got a lot of costs involved in that. It didn't work out. You've got to go through all that again for somebody else. Not only it's a time consuming, but a lot of money involved. The effect that it has on the morale of that discharged employee is pretty tough. It's hard. It crushes their morale. And it also affects the people that remain. It affects their morale. And then, if you're not a farm, or if you have to pay, if you're a big enough farm where you have to pay unemployment insurance, there could be that possibility that your unemployment will rise if they think if the employment commission thinks that they're eligible to receive unemployment benefits. So to keep that down, to keep that from happening, of paying additional FUTRA and SUTRA costs, it's important that you have a disciplinary process, and it's very important that you document everything. Now, there's been an analogy made with terminations that is called, the analogy, it's a workplace divorce. And if you think about it, it's a good analogy, because you spend, your time at work, usually at least 40 hours a week, if not more, depending on the job. And all of a sudden, that's gone. You have a network of friends there at work, they're gone. It's pretty hard on that, the effect of that, the morale of that person that's gotten terminated. And it can be a cordial, professional type situation, or it can be combative. It can get ugly. Both parties, you as the employer and the employee, both are at fault, because you chose them and they chose you. And so both parties they share that responsibility for choosing each other. Both parties also are responsible for making that relationship grow and be successful. And if there's a termination, it's just not on one part. It's on both parts share that responsibility. So it's a really good analogy, with that, calling it a workplace divorce. Now, guys, I'll just be honest with you. Terminations can get ugly. It can get ugly in person while it's going on. It can also get, you can also have some legal implications. I know this guy that got terminated from his job, and first thing he did was go hire a lawyer and file for unlawful termination, file a lawsuit on it. I don't know the whole story. I've heard, I told you earlier there's three sides to the story: his, theirs, and the truth. He told me his side of the story. His co-workers told me another side of the story. I don't know what the truth is. But the first thing he did was go file a lawsuit. So, know when you need to protect yourself. If you think you're going to have to terminate somebody, consult an attorney. You may have to pay them quite a bit for their advice, but if it keeps you out of the court system of getting a lawsuit filed on you, it's well worth the money. As our good old professor I refer to a lot, Dr. Leon Geyer, would say, nobody likes surprises except wrapped up under a tree on Christmas morning. Because if anything were to go in front of a jury, if this situation goes in front of a jury, you don't know what's going to happen. So make sure you follow those steps in chapter 14 with discipline, and chapter 15 with determination. But don't hesitate to contact an attorney. And again, I can't stress enough. Document, document, document everything you do. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. And you don't want that to come up in a court situation. You don't want this to be a surprise to the employee. You want, by having that affect it, a disciplinary process and informing them that, hey, if this behavior doesn't change, it could lead to dismissal. They need to be well aware of it. So when it comes to the point, that disciplinary process of a termination, they know it's coming. They know it's not a surprise. So, they chose to continue doing that behavior, and they probably know, you want them to know that they'll get fired. So when it comes to that point, they know it's coming. Does that make sense? Now, again, guys, you got those protected characteristics you got to watch out for. Just like with hiring and pay raises, bonuses, stuff like that, you cannot terminate somebody based on age, sex, religion, national origin, race, or disability. You have to have that documentation of that behavior. You just can't fire them for those things. There's a couple of other things you can't discriminate against. One of them's whistleblowers. If you're doing something wrong in your company or as a supervisor and your employer or your employee goes and files a complaint, they are protected. You cannot retaliate against them. And you also cannot fire people for concerted activity. That is protected. So what is concerted activity? You know what that is? If you try to unionize, it would be a conservative activity. So if Aaron's little store that he's wanting to do for his, his project he's been working on, if all of his employees got together and tried to form a union, he just couldn't go through there and fire them. They're protected the law. So, are we clear on all this stuff at this point? Anybody have anything they want to add? Keith, you've been in the workforce. Have you ever
Uh,
had to terminate somebody?
he stepped out for a minute.
Oh, okay. Um, and Tom, if you want to jump in here and say something, you're more than welcome to share your experiences or your counsel.
Oh well,
Trying to
I'll just,
put you on the spot or
yeah.
anything, but
No,
feel welcome.
I'm gonna go in a slightly different direction. Which you mentioned it a little bit, but the whole when you let somebody go, you have to you can't tell any of the other workers, any of the other employees anything about that. All you can do is you can tell your other workers that person no longer works here. You can't tell them why they're not working here. Did they get fired? Did they quit? Did they do retirement? Did they get abducted by aliens? Did they win a lottery? You can't talk about any of that for violating their privacy. But you can say the person isn't here anymore, and that's it.
Yeah,
Um,
I haven't got to that, but that's a good point.
yeah, because
I'm
the
glad you're
reason
bringing
why,
that up.
yeah, the reason why I got to this is just last week I know of a business that let some people go, and then somebody in like the HR department or something had an email that was explaining and justifying the layoffs, and instead of just sending it to one corporate overlord person, that email got sent out to the entire company, laid
Oh,
out everything for all the people that they let go, and that was a big, big no-no. Of course, an email came out like an hour later, apparently saying, if you got it, don't open it, don't read it. But of course,
it was
that
too
some
late.
people were going to read it. Yeah, so that's a big no-no, and the company will be lucky if they don't end up getting a lawsuit because of it. Somebody potentially could sue them for it.
Yeah, they probably will end up in court over that one.
Yes, and it was just I don't know how just send it to everybody instead of one person kind of thing. But I personally have not ever been fired, so woohoo. Um,
I haven't either. I've been laid off, but I haven't been fired.
I had the company go bankrupt out from under me, but oh well. Um, but I've given them plenty of calls based on my incompetence, but they haven't let me go yet. So
So, anyway, Aaron or Jasmine, y'all have any questions or anything to add at this point?
No.
Any stories or anything y'all have to share?
Well, at my last job, I had a boss that, like I said, I had to leave because of my friend had passed away, and she was, yeah, it wasn't good. And I actually quit the job, and she started talking all this crap about how, I shouldn't do that just because of a death in the family and all this other stuff. And she was telling everybody my business and what I was doing, and I didn't appreciate that at all.
No, it sounds like, you know, from what you're saying, she wasn't a very good supervisor.
No, she wasn't,
Uh,
and the job wasn't even that. I mean, I was full time, but it's not like that's not a job I wanted to make a career out of. And when I had a death in the family, I was ready to quit anyway, but that put the icing on the cake right there. So I just went ahead and gave my 2 weeks notice then,
Right.
and she wasn't happy at all.
No, and I'm sure she wasn't. Uh, it sure didn't you know, look good on her. But that goes back to that deal, you know, with supervisors. If things aren't working out right, you probably ought to need to take a look at yourself first. And, maybe she did and she didn't like what she saw. And maybe she's making the changes necessary, maybe not. Who knows? But it just sounded like, you know, your side of things, it's just wasn't a good situation.
Yeah.
So,
Which, oh, I was just gonna say that Aaron reminded me of something I was gonna say right before he said it. Related to what you were talking about last week, when you're disciplining somebody, you need to start with positives, end with a positive, and have the discipline in the middle. Well, you need to kind of be positive when you're letting somebody go, when you're terminating them too, because, like Dwayne said, it's a part of it's your fault because you got them into that you went into that marriage with them just like they went into the marriage with you. So it's partially your fault that this thing didn't work out. So you shouldn't be mean about it unless they did something stupid like rob from you or something like that. But you don't want to run the person down because there again, they could be connected to potential customers, potential future employees, potential suppliers, who knows, if not for any other reason than that. But it's partially your fault, and partially you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot in the future. Try as best you can to keep it positive.
that's right. That's right. Uh,
As tough as that may be.
it's tough. I would imagine it'd be tough. I've never been through that process as an employee, and I haven't been through it when I was in a management position. So the worst thing I had to do was make a choice on who to lay off. That was the toughest part. That was the toughest thing I had to do with that. And it wasn't even a disciplinary deal. It was just a matter of economics. And my boss was looking at me to say, "Who do you recommend we let go and or keep?" Um, so let's talk about some things as an employer or an owner that you need to be very specifically aware of, because otherwise it can come back and bite you at a future date. You know, um, and I have ran into this. This has happened to me. You have to be very careful about any promises or verbal statements you make at any time. I've had told to me by an employer, as long as you do a good job, we will have work for you. Is that something you should say to one of your employees? No, it's not. You're making them a promise that, hey, I'll work you as long as you do a good job. You know, if, I could still do my job and I could be good at my job, but I could cause problems. I could steal from them. I could harass other employees. I could always be habitually late. You know what I'm trying to say? I could do a good job, but I could break a lot of company policy rules and still be good at my job. But because he made that promise to me and he fired me, I got a legal leg to stand on. Hey, you told me that as long as I do a good job, I'll always have a job here. You lied to me. That can come back to bite you. I mean, in my case, the guy that told me that, I was working. I was in college. I was working on a farm. Tom, you probably know the guy, Bill McDonald.
No, name's not clicking, but
McDonald Farms, that right outside of Blacksburg off of Price's Fork Road. I worked for him when I was at Tech. His father, Jim McDonald, he used to be the county extension agent in Tazewell County, the county I grew up in. I was in 4-H. They knew my parents. They knew me, you know. And yeah, Dwayne, yeah, come on out. You can work for us. As long as you do a good job, we'll work you. And I did a good job. I was there on time. I was there when I was supposed to. La, la, la. There was no issues. But I'm just saying, it's not, and they were good to work for. I'm not cutting them down or nothing, but it's just not, that was not a good thing. That's not a good thing to tell your employees, because they could have other problems and still do a good job. And if you promise them, as long as you do a good job, we'll work for you. We'll have
yeah.
work for you.
And your definition of a good job might be different than theirs.
That's right. That's true. Could be two different definitions. One of the things we've talked a lot about in animal science is measuring. Being able to measure stuff. Weight gain, forage production. If you can measure it, you can manage it. So when we're talking about what is the definition of a good job, how are you going to measure that so that you both are clear about what a good job is? Is it the number of if it's a factory job, is it the number of bolts and nuts that you screw together every day on your assembly line? Are you meeting your quota? But you just just don't even say that to begin with. Again, this is where that pre-employment practical exam comes into place that we talked about. Giving them, a practical exam of some of the tasks that they're going to be doing to make sure they're capable of doing it. The book gives a description the story about a guy, a dairy farmer, who was looking for a milker, and he was in one state. The guy he ended up hiring, or it might have been a dairy farm manager, the manager that hiring a manager for his dairy farm. The manager, or the guy he hired, was from another state, and he just hired him based on the resume and on the interview. When he got to the job, and he moved his family across 3 or 4 states to get there, got him a house and all that, the guy couldn't do the job. He had lied on his resumes. And so the farmer, the owner of the farm, felt bad because he had quit his other job, moved across a couple states, uprooted his family, brought them with him. And he felt bad to fire him because of of this new job, the big transition the guy had. But he also wanted to fire him because he couldn't do anything of that job. And had he only given a pre-practical exam, he could have eliminated that. or a pre-employment practical exam. He could have eliminated that guy as a potential candidate. So that's one reason. That's the reason I told you guys to do a practical exam, or you should really consider doing one in that hiring process to make sure they're not lying to you on the resume or, you know, embellishing. Now, another thing you may want to consider when you hire somebody is to have a probationary period. Now, this probationary period, is going to be, you know, however long you want it to be, 3 months, 6 months. Um, it could be longer. Extension was like 4 years, 4 or 5 years. Um, and during that time, that probationary period, you get to see whether or not they work. I wouldn't recommend doing like extension and having a several year probationary period. But, you know, most of the places I've worked at, it was three, three, 3 to 12 months, somewhere around there. You know, I think 3 to 6 months is pretty good for most of them. Um, because if somebody's trying out your job, you know, you don't want them to be too far, you know, too long from their family during a probationary period. If they decide they don't want it, you know, they can go back home, or if it works out, they move their family out there. Um, you know, for convenience of that person. And in 3 months' time, I think you'll have an idea whether you want to keep them around or not. But you know, you need to make sure let them know again that it's a probationary period. Again, don't make them promises. And the thing you need to do during this probationary period is to have an evaluation process, at least one in the middle of that probationary period, so that you know, that person knows whether or not they're doing a good job or knows where they need to improve on. And, you know, so they have an idea whether or not they're going to stay at the end of the period. If you're just going to make the decision, oh, I'm not going to keep them. My wife, where she used to work in North Carolina at a dermatology office, they had a probationary period, and the owner of that practice, you know, he'd hire, you know, the assistants, medical assistants on a probationary period, but he never would evaluate them. They didn't know if they had a job at the end or not. And there were some people, I mean, I think they probably had a clue uh, whether or not they're going to be let go at the end of the probationary period. But I do know for a fact there were some people thought, oh yeah, okay, it's going to be a permanent job, and at the end of the probationary period, they were let go. You know, you don't want things to be surprised. You don't want surprises. So don't be, you know, you have a probationary period, give them a review in that period, at least one, if not more. So it wouldn't be a surprise if you decide not to keep them. So make sure you have an evaluation process for that probationary period. Now, one thing you'll run into or you'll see in the workforce are it's a at will statement. Um, Companies can fire you at will just because they want to fire you. So you have at will versus just cause for termination. Um, at will means they can fire you for any reason at all. They can fire you for no reason at all. They can terminate that employment at their leisure. It also means for you as a employee that you can terminate the employment at any time for any reason. So it goes both ways with that at will. Um, but it could have a negative impact because because your employees don't have that sense of job security. If you do have an at will statement in there, don't hide it in fine print. And then don't contradict it verbally, but telling them something like, as long as you do a good job, we'll always have work for you. So don't contradict it and don't hide it. Just cause, a just cause statement is, you know, they have to have just cause to be fired. You know, they have to do something wrong or they're not doing their job to the standards that are expected of them. So uh, there's debate about those two theories. Realize that the at will, a lot of attorneys will suggest you have it, um, but it could give a negative impact because there's no job security. And people like job security.
Dwayne,
Yes, sir.
got a phone call, a good phone call. It appears that my damage to my bee business is covered by my insurance. So that's something that why I had to take that call. But I have to get more detailed information, pictures and stuff sent to them, verify they have coverage. But I do have some stories about termination from my work career, and it's kind of interesting how all this works out. And being on both sides of the fence here, far as representing the company and also being the person's advocate, kind of the ombudsman for the person that's being terminated, seeing it from both sides. But the first thing that comes into play when you terminate somebody, the lawyer or the equal office of opportunity, the first thing that you have to have, what is your written policy for terminating somebody? Are you going by that? Is that policy represents the state laws and stuff in regard to it, then the federal laws and stuff like that. So the federal law triumphs anything. But most company policies are more lenient than stuff going on. And you had three areas that I dealt with in terminating people. The no questions asked, whatever, was basically stealing, fraud, misrepresentation, falsifying data records. That was immediate termination type thing. You know, you didn't get to clean out your office or anything like that, or they came to you on the job site and took your car away from you right there. And basically, if your home office, your personal stuff was boxed up and it was waiting for you at security for you, so you didn't even get to come back into the building. And then probably the other one, and this is people, poor performance. And a lot of time, poor performance was basically you got the wrong person, the wrong job. And when you confront the people about this and give them their options, it was a sign of relief, because you wouldn't believe the stress that they were going under and the stress that was shared with their friends and families. And there was relief that you finally come to a resolution, say, hey, this is not for you, and we'll try to help you. One of the things we do is try to see if there's possibly other openings with the company that might be more suited to you, or try to get you lined up with a employment service or something. So it really wasn't, kick you in the butt out the front door type thing. We kind of work with those kind of people, if they were doing their job but just weren't meeting the sales quotas and stuff like that. And then the biggest problem where we lost most people and where the biggest controversy was, you could have a stellar employee doing very well, hitting their numbers and stuff, and then there's a management change. And that manager wants to change everything under the sun, and you might not fit into that manager's game plan. So what happens to you then? So you're kind of like the fifth wheel. And so work with those people, here again, trying to realign them with another position. But a lot of times we discuss severance. And basically, it's no fault of you that things aren't working the way they are. It's no fault of the company. It's kind of the fault of the manager, and the company always sides with the manager. So this comes to your negotiation skills when you are leaving a company. Try to get as much as you can. And the first thing you want to do in all these three scenarios, you don't want to be fired. You want to submit a letter of resignation. Because by law, when a future employer calls, the only thing the company can tell you says, yes, so-and-so worked here from this date and resigned on this date. That's all by law they can give out about you. They can't say you were fired. They can't say you're a good worker. Can't say you're a bad worker or anything like that. So negotiate the best severance pay, and usually it's standard practice is 2 weeks of severance for each year you worked. And then I mentioned about getting the job placement counseling. Lee Heck Harris is a very good service, and if you had to go out and pay them, they work with you preparing your skills, updating your resume. They have classes, seminars on maybe you want to change gears, maybe there's schools to go to. You're probably looking at about a $3,000 to $4,000 service that's on to you. So get those things, and then, as you say, the next stop you should stop at, have all your paperwork and document is go to the Virginia, in this case, Virginia Employment Agency, and fill your paperwork out. Because I believe there's about, is it a 30-day lag time or something from once you apply till you get your first check? I'm not sure on that information, but it's something that takes a while before you get. So those are kind of those are kind of the things I like to share with you about my role in terminating folks.
I appreciate that. Like with that management change, and that person didn't work out with the new manager or didn't have a spot for him. I would think more or less that would be of a lack of work type situation. Kind of more of a layoff or reorganization, and the guy's getting booted out more so than the guy getting fired. Um, you know, wasn't due to his skills; it was just a management change. Um, and that happens a lot. My dad got caught up in that at a company he worked with. They sold out, and the company that bought out two or three companies that made mining equipment, and they were just going to combine the three companies to make one company. And Dad was in management, and they booted him out. Um, that happens. Um, Whereas behavior issues are a different deal. And it sounds like y'all were good to the people that worked hard but just couldn't meet those sales quotas. Um, and like you said, sometimes that's a relief on both parties. So
Well, that's true, but one of the things you want to do, you don't want a person leaving with an attitude or being hostile towards you, because lawsuits are no win situation for anybody. And believe me, by getting someone maybe a month's salary is expensive, but it's a lot less expensive than getting a lawyer involved. And then the person leaving, it's kind of a bridge to carry them over till they get to the next job, which takes about 30 days.
yeah, that's smart. You want to prevent that hostility, and you definitely want to prevent the lawsuit. And we hadn't got we hadn't talked about severance yet, but we'll hit that later. But it's good you brought that up. So anyway, we're out of time, and Keith, I appreciate your insight and your stories on this. I knew you had figured you had a lot of experience with disciplinary and termination side of things as well. So um,
The,
you're
my
not going to
closing
go.
the closing comments I like to make about this whole thing it's nothing personal, it's business. And I think that was one of the closing lines in The Godfather as he went to shoot the guy. So just
Yeah,
remember
that's
that.
what I was thinking. It's nothing personal. Boom. But yeah, you're not going to be here anymore, right? You're going out of town next week.
I'll be here next week, and that's my last week, and then I'll be out of town. I've got
Okay.
I won't be here Thursday. I have a doctor's appointment, but I have some other stuff coming on.
Okay. All right. So,
I appreciate it.
yeah, not a problem. We'll see you next week. And you guys, I'll see you guys Thursday. Jasmine, I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
I'll let you
Okay.
go stretch your legs before Tom's class.
Oh, I'll do it. Aaron, when are you planning on taking that animal science test? I've already emailed it to the ladies.
Thursday, I think. Thursday's going to be the day I take both of them.
Okay, I've already sent it over there to them. All right.
All right. Thank you.